Welcome everyone. You were listening to and perhaps watching Hot Sauce Sports. The countdown update is Eagle was giving me a countdown this time, and I just wasn't looking. I was just scrolling through Instagram.
So I had to like wave my hand in a fancy fashion to try and draw vision in this peripheral.
Yeah. See, benefits of being in studio. We would have to restart.
Yeah, because otherwise you wouldn't be looking at all.
No, no. We would have to restart the show completely. And we got a good show. Terry Tam joins me, of course, in IMPs, and this is Not Sauce for Work on the Hot Sauce Sports Podcast Network. Terry, how's it going?
I am fantabulous.
Nice.
Fantabulous.
Well, we have a guest today. Stephanie Medeiros from ABB, and she's involved with Formula E, which is sort of the sustainable racing league. She's going to join us. She's going to talk to us about that. It's cool. I like sort of off-kilter sports. Like, for example, we all played flag football for years and years and years and years. And so it's kind of cool when sort of someone has an idea. So someone down the line had an idea for like, hey, why don't we race electric vehicles? And that turns into a whole thing that becomes worldwide and it's televised. And so it's super cool. It's kind of like rooting for the underdog, right? They're not NASCAR, they're not F1, so it's kind of cool to look into that.
I like anything different. I'm always game for, and I'm always, as long as I can put money on it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, obviously that's and the thing is, like, we're gonna talk. We already did the interview. We're gonna talk to her, and you're gonna hear us talk to her. And when we do, she talks about how unpredictable of a sport it is. Yeah. And I was thinking, like, Terry and I are gonna have some fun with Formula E. Like, we're just gonna rip money at these cars without knowing anything, and it doesn't matter because nobody knows anything.
Where's the pink car? I want the pink car is gonna win. I just have a feeling.
I'm gonna name them like horses, and then and based on the names that I gave them, choose the name I like best.
Yeah, exactly.
First car to wear pants. That one.
That's gonna be a good name.
Yeah. Yeah.
What other names can we have for electric cars?
That's not bad.
No petroleum, no problem.
That's not bad. That's not
Gas
bad.
my ass. Gas my ass is a sick car. Like, I think we should get into Formula E and name the car Gas My Ass.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Also, you can just keep the title of the movie, Deuce Bigalow, Electric Boogaloo.
Or like
from the
or gas is only for my ass.
What's the Jason Statham movie where he gets electrocuted over and over again? Charged?
Crank?
Crank.
Oh, Crank.
Crank has to be a car.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he needs to keep. It's basically speed, but the bus is his heart.
Exactly. Oh, and then his partner driver on the same team is cranked too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be awesome. I like it. We should definitely just start our own federation, Formula E Plus. Everyone's plus. Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, Formula E Plus.
Formula F, because F is better than E.
That's true.
I don't know why.
I don't think it works that way.
Formula D.
One letter better than another.
Because it's higher.
Because 7, 8, 9, does that work here?
I was going to say P is by far the best letter because it's 4 letters in one.
It's true. That's true.
How is it 4 letters in one?
Because it's a P normally, but if you flip it on one axis, it becomes a Q. If you flip it on the other axis, it becomes a B. And if you flip it on the other axis, it becomes a D.
You know who's a D right now?
I'll show you my D.
So the Olympics are coming to a close.
Thank God.
It's the Olympics I've cared the least about. And maybe, is it the time difference? I don't know what it is.
So I've had a few thoughts about this. I think the time difference obviously doesn't help. But I think the other part of it is when we were kids, and I say because we're all around the same age, it was like, oh, the Olympics are on TV. We're going to watch the Olympics as a family. We're going to check out the events and everything. And it's just what you did. And I think now it's come to a point of there's so much of everything everywhere all the time. Who fucking cares who wins the gold medal in a random sport you don't pay attention to for the other 3.5 years of the year, right?
I also feel like every other year, basketball and hockey would end. And then, there's baseball. But baseball is always a sport you kind of just watch in the background unless you're a passionate fan of a specific team. And as much as I like the Mets, I'm not the same kind of fan for the Mets the same way I was for the Expos. So now, with the Olympics happening, with this compressed sports schedule, with basketball being pushed late, the NHL being pushed late, I kind of felt like I didn't have a chance to get excited for the Olympics.
Yeah,
Not even the basketball, which is normally the Olympic event, summer or winter, that I like the most. It's hard. I don't care. I don't care, and it sucks because DeGrasse just won the 200 meter for Canada, just won gold. I should be really happy. It's DeGrasse's second medal for Canada. We have another Canadian Olympian who just got a whole bunch of medals, and we'll talk about her later. And again,
the women are killing it. We're gonna win a medal in women's soccer.
And that's it. We upset the Americans in soccer, which never happens. Like it's actually been a great Olympics, but between the games being on super light, I'm still recovering from the NBA, and now I've been reading up on all the draft picks because the draft also just happened, and I didn't even have time to research them before the draft. So now I'm doing that reading later on, and it's so overwhelming, and it's literally this thing on the side where I'll load it up on my second screen at home, and I never even look there. I never look there, and it's been tough.
You never even looked there. I don't even have it open. I haven't watched a single event of these Olympics, and usually I'm like tuned in. Yeah. I like the Winter Olympics a little bit better than the Summer Olympics. I guess it's maybe because of the hockey kind of gets me into it.
But see, basketball does that for me normally, right?
Yeah.
And this time around, I'll have the game on, but I never even looking at it. It's just there.
The only part of the Summer Olympics that I usually watch is the track and field, and I just didn't even know when it was on. I completely ignored it, and it happened today.
My favorite Olympic story so far is of Belarusian Olympic sprinter Kristina Tsiamunskaya, I think is pronouncing her name. So long story short, she was critical of her coach and was basically told, you're getting on a plane and you're going to become like a political prisoner for the rest of your life. Jesus. And your family's getting threatened. So she had to go to the IOC to claim refugee, and they're trying to ship me away without my will. And now she's trying to find basically a refugee. I think she's in the, I want to say German or Czech consulate right now, or embassy in Japan or Tokyo, to figure it all out and what's going on. It's crazy.
How desperate do you have to be to go to the IOC for help? Like...
Poland. She's in Poland for humanitarian visa right now.
I know Belarus must be a terrifying place in some ways, and in this way specifically. But it's like going to the mafia and asking for help. Like, please, I might be murdered, and we'll take care of you, but the VIG's 200%.
not just the VIG. They're just gonna ask him. They're gonna ask her for favors. She's gonna have to go take out some Canadian athlete, some American athlete. She's gonna have to
Tanya Harding didn't want to swing that bat.
Yeah.
She did what she had to do.
She just made fun of a Russian person, and all of a sudden she owed money to the IOC or to the KGP.
Poor Nancy Kerrigan's like, why is this happening? And now we know why, because of the story we just made up on Not Sauce for Work. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Like I said, great guest. Can't wait till we get to that interview as well, which of course I'm lying about because we pre-recorded the interview. But nonetheless, we didn't pre-record the news, so it's time for the news.
That stuff we talk about sometimes.
Terry, it's the news.
Is it?
Yeah, sports has largely become about the off season in a lot of senses. It's the time where fan bases have the most hope, and there's a lot of excitement. We see this all the time with the NFL, and the NBA saw that formula and said, you know what, we're going to make a big deal about our offseason too. And they did. And this was a big day, but not a ton happened except the dollar amounts. Like for people who aren't basketball fans, like priority basketball fans, like the money to me, when I see a hockey contract for a star player, it's like, oh, how is he even going to make his car payments? Because just what I'm used to seeing in the NBA. And one of the big ones is a guy who's going to end his contract at 40. CP3 getting a 4-year, $120 million contract to stay with the Suns after turning down the 1-year extension.
Good for him, man. You know what? He's not going to win a championship unless he gets traded to a team.
It's pretty good, man. And
I don't know. I think that was like a Cinderella run.
Yes, because they're not ready yet, and I think they're like a couple of key pieces away. But they didn't make a playoff for They didn't win the playoff series for over a decade. And then Chris Paul comes and they go to the finals. So when he goes to Robert Sarver, that's what him putting his D on the table, right? Like that's him saying, hey, listen, I was the most valuable player for your team this season. And yeah, the season didn't end the way they wanted to, but still, it was exciting. It was fun. The fans were engaged. We all saw that. We saw the guy counting Giannis's free throws with the money in his hand for some reason. They're wild fans. But it's interesting because the way his contract structured is a lot of the money's up front. So while Booker is still in his rookie deal, they can afford to sign Ayton. They can afford to sign Bridges, and they can keep Booker. So they can keep those four together for the 4 years. So the window itself is probably closer to 2 or 3 years, which I'm kind of inclined to agree with you that I don't think a championship is in their sights at that point. But it'll help sort of Booker get to that point where maybe when Paul's done, they can recruit the next version, or when Paul's earning, I don't remember the third and fourth years, but when he's earning a little bit less, they can bring in a key shooter or something to give them that, or a point guard to take some minutes off of Paul's shoulders. And maybe Paul becomes more of a sixth man at that point, and maybe that's his path, which is crazy to think about. One of the greatest point guards of all time, the way he'll get a championship is maybe as a sixth man in 3 years.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts. And that's the thing too. It's like, yeah, they're built for the future, obviously, and the fact that they can do this and save some money. I mean, I never understood basketball contracts. I always thought it's like, how do they afford anybody else on the team? But then you realize there's only like 10 people per team, 10 to 12 people per team.
That was actually going to be my question, because I am not a big basketball guy, and so there's terms and things I don't understand.
It's super complicated.
When it comes to contracts. And there's two in particular, if you could explain them to me in a fancy fashion. So one is the Supermax, and two is the idea of a sign and trade. So what is the Supermax? Why do you do it? And why would you do a sign and trade for?
So Supermaxes were introduced because, first of all, there's a maximum contract in basketball. So right now, I don't remember the exact amount, but let's just use this as people are going to say, oh, you got the numbers wrong. Who cares? The number's wrong. Let's just say $35 million as a clean number. This number's about 5 years old. It's $35 million, let's say. And then the Supermax is intended because anyone could want to leave and play with other players, and the idea of like, well, why would I take my maximum contract, in, for example, Milwaukee, where I can make that same money in New York City or LA and play, or in LA and play with LeBron or whatever it is. Now the Supermax was meant to try and keep players in their market, in the markets that drafted them, or in the markets that initially gave them the big contract. So Giannis, for example, signs for the Supermax. So instead of being like $35 million, it's $41 million, which people are like, well, it's only $6 million. $6 million is a lot of money, especially if you extend it over 5 or 6 years. That's a big deal. So the idea was to try and keep superstars in their markets. It hasn't entirely paid off, but we do see cases like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Nobody doesn't do that extension from the rookie deal to the Supermax. It's never happened. The last example of that is Giannis Antetokounmpo.
So, if I understand this correctly, if you are already with a team, they can give you a Supermax contract, but if you go into free agency, another team cannot.
They can only give you a maximum deal.
I understand. Yeah. But they can give you in theory, can they give you a 1-year deal on max and then immediately give you an extension for Supermax?
They can. Then there's a whole concept of bird years. So the amount you're allowed to offer players is based on years of service in the league and years of service.
I understand.
For the team, but there's mechanisms for that. LeBron James famously only takes 1-year deals. Recently, he's been doing longer deals with the Lakers, but generally, he was doing 1-year deals in Cleveland, and his first contract, I believe, in LA was 1 year.
LeBron had the luxury of doing those kinds of things, right? Like he knew he was always going to get the most amount of money every single year.
KD can do that.
A lot of guys. Yeah, there's about 20 guys that can do that.
With a 2-year deal with a player option, right? Which is basically a 1-year deal.
Kevin Durant did the same thing. So the way basketball contracts, it really favors the player a lot more than hockey contracts do.
They also have the highest split between what the teams make and what the players make.
Yeah.
So they get I think 48% of the income, which is massive. They're partners with their teams basically.
Exactly.
So this might answer my second question. A sign and trade.
Yeah. So
is you sign a guy on Supermax and then you trade him.
So for example, Anthony Davis was signed and then traded a year later That's not exactly a sign and trade, but the idea is he wanted his supermax deal and then was able to get traded to the Lakers.
Right. So your current team is the only one that can offer it to you. So they give it to you, and then they immediately trade you somewhere.
Now, and the other thing is, basketball, you need to match contracts. So in certain circumstances, you need to match all of the salary. You need to match the outgoing salary with the incoming salary. Some cases it's 80%, some cases it's 60%. So the way a sign and trade works in a lot of cases is Kawhi Leonard, for example, was a sign and trade away from Toronto to the Clippers, and the reason why is because he was on good terms with Masai Ujiri and the rest of the management, and he said, "Well, I'll do you guys a favor. I'm not going to leave for nothing. I'll sign a deal, and then you're going to get back assets in return." And so they got draft picks, and they got a lot. They got a decent haul back. Obviously, not to the caliber of Kawhi Leonard, but
better
the
than him just
superstar is
saying,
always the most valuable
fucking
thing.
off and you get nothing, right?
Exactly.
It protects the teams too. Like Kawhi can
Yeah.
be like the good guy and say, "Listen, I know I'm going to get this amount because the league only allows me to get this amount. So just give it to me, and then I just want out of here. Just trade me." And that's
Trade
basically
me,
it.
and this way, like I said, I can leave as a free agent, but this way I'm not putting you out in lurch. I'm not putting you in a bad situation.
Exactly.
And there's one sign and trade that I think is going to happen. And it almost happened the night of the draft, and we'll get there as we get through this as well. But another move, Bulls trade for Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso. I kind of like it. I think they went from being pitiful to decent. You know,
They went to pitiful to being a playoff team. Like Adam Levine.
Wrong band.
Zach Levine hasn't even been in the playoffs yet, and he's been playing in Chicago.
And he was an
You know
all-star
what I
this
mean?
year. He was an all-star.
He's been playing in Chicago. Like Chicago is the fucking. It's Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Steve Kerr. Like you name it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact that he hasn't been in the playoffs this year is a joke. Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso make them a playoff team.
And Lonzo Ball becomes the guy who handles the ball, and that way Levine can do more like catch and shoot and drive to the lane and cutting. And the things he does really well, he no longer has to handle the ball. They have a guy who I think is a very, very competent point guard, despite the fact that people hate him because of his dad, which is a weird reason to hate him.
And we've I like the fact that Lonzo's kind of like stepped away from the big baller brand, and he's like, you know what, LeVar, you go do your thing. I'm just gonna shoot hoops, and that's it.
I think he also has his own family. Like that happens with everyone with age, right?
Yeah.
Like the way my relationship with my father is insanely close, but it's not the same as when I was 18 years old, where he started playing in the league, right? Or 19,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever it was.
So another thing too is that Lonzo Ball got a nice contract, a contract that he that people said he wouldn't deserve, and 4 years, $85 million. Can't laugh at that at all. Good for him. I'm happy for him. Solid player. I've always been a huge fan of Lonzo Ball. I think that listen, the fact that his name is Ball, we had all these expectations for him, and like his father hyped him up to be the next LeBron James and all this shit. But realistically, he's become just a solid basketball player.
He's going to be a good basketball player. Probably have let's say 3 All-Star appearances and play for 15 years. Like what more can you add? Like if he turns out to be Ricky Rubio, that's fine. Ricky Rubio's a good basketball player, man. Like you know.
Well, Ricky Rubio didn't play 15 years in the NBA.
Well, he's still playing. So.
Well, he's still playing, but I don't think he's playing. I mean, how long has he been in the league for?
It's a long time.
Didn't he leave?
If you
Didn't
put
he
down
leave?
The Pokemon and no, he never left. He's
never
just not a
left?
starter anymore.
Anyway, I always think whenever I think Alonzo Ball, if you want to think of comparison, I think of like Mike Bibby. I don't know why.
Well, Bibby was a much better shooter than Alonzo, though.
No, that's true, but just like stature wise.
But a guy, yeah, not super big, but who can contribute in a lot of different ways.
That's it.
So Lonzo Ball, you got drafted in 2017.
No.
Mike
No.
Bibby.
Ricky Rubio,
Next
dude.
topic.
Who?
Next
Ricky
topic.
who?
Ricky Rubio.
Oh, this guy. He was drafted in 2009.
Yeah. So that's like 12 years. That happened. That's a quick 12 years, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Alex the Intern celebrating. I'm 50-50. I think the big move they made, I don't like at all. They got Russell Westbrook, and they traded for him.
The Lakers, this is.
The Lakers, sorry. Yeah, I should have set that up. Alex the Intern's a Lakers fan. He lives in L.A. I'm not a huge fan of Russ Westbrook joining this team because him and LeBron are both ball-dominant players, and Russell Westbrook is the worst shooter by volume since Charles Barkley. So Charles Barkley obviously wasn't known as a three-point shooter. Russell Westbrook, and those who like him less than me refer to him as Russell Westbrick, is not particularly a good shooter. But then they went out and they got other shooting. So they got Kendrick Nunn. Terry, your favorite player, is now a Laker, Kent Bazemore. He's now with the Lakers. He's a good shooter as well.
How much did he make? $100 million?
Not as much. he got his big contract already, but more than you'd think. More than you'd think.
Honestly, I'm gonna exaggerate how much I think he got paid, and Eagle start bringing up how much Kent Bazemore made, not how much Pikachu made. Kent Bazemore, I say he made $12 million on this contract.
Maybe total. I think it was like 2 years at like 6 or 7.
Ken Bazemore in 2016 salary was 15.73.
No.
You're the worst, dude. What's wrong with you today?
This year, like his
You
new
just
contract.
signed the contract.
Yeah, but it's more fun if I tell you the old one.
It is fun, but now I want to know what the new one is.
I'm looking. Google had it. That's why it was easy. Hold on, I'm looking.
2021 Ken Bazemore Lakers contract.
It might not be all like just there. That's why I gotta find it.
No, it's in some article somewhere. It has to be.
It could be that the details aren't public because I'm seeing 1 year, but I don't see the year. Anyway,
I know it's 1 year. I think he made 12 million. That's what I educated guess for because if he made max last time, then he must be really overvalued.
They're saying it's 15.73 everywhere. So
15.73 a year.
What are we doing, NBA?
Well, they're paying the players. Melo is on the team too. Malik Monk, who's not a guy. He was like a mid first round pick, which in the NBA is always kind of a crapshoot, but he's solid. Trevor Ariza and Dwight Howard to me are strange pickups because they kind of seem like husks of themselves. But I guess they just need minutes to give when LeBron and
oh no, he signed a 1 year, $2.4 million.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Oh, okay, there you go. Now I don't hate him as much anymore.
I thought he might have got the mid-level exception, but I don't.
Okay.
I don't
Ken Bazemore,
you're
you're off my murder list.
But the Miami Heat did pay Duncan Robinson $18 million a year for 4 years, but that's the going rate for elite 3-point shooting. So that's good for a dude who was undrafted. It's the biggest contract.
I was gonna say it's good for a guy who I only knew existed this year.
No, he's been good like the last 2 years.
I know, but I'm not a depth NBA guy. You know, like I know the top 5 for the most part. I know 80% of the starting 5 in the NBA. That's a good number.
I was surprised when I first heard his name, and then when I first saw him play, I was surprised that he was white. To be honest, I was surprised.
With a name like Duncan Robinson, you're not expecting that. That's
no, 0%.
Yeah.
And the amount of white was the most surprising because if he was like Tyler Hero, I get it, but no, he's the whitest guy I've ever seen, and he's an elite shooter, and that's what that team needs. They bring in Kyle Lowry in a trade where they send Dragic and Precious Achiuwa to Toronto.
They got PJ Tucker too, no? Yeah,
they signed PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker to me just seems like the prototypical Miami Heat guy who can kind of score but defends really well. Like that's just they have like 12 of those guys at all times.
PJ Tucker has become the J.R. Smith now.
He's J.R. Smith. Well, no, J.R. Smith couldn't really defend.
No, not the type of player. I'm saying like just bouncing. He's got the
Jay Crowder to me is the comparison. Like he's a guy who can kind of shoot a little bit but defend really well.
Yeah, Jay Crowder's good. I don't know, man. I think that I like what the Heat are doing. Compliment you guys. I hate what the Lakers are doing. I just think that
I just don't know how Russ Westbrook fits.
It's their right. It's their if you want to make these teams, if you're able to fit them in the cap, it's fine. I just think that it kind of does it dilute the NBA? Absolutely. It kind of ruins it.
But the NBA has always had super teams.
I know.
There's never been a time.
It's not even the super team factor. It's like whoever just all the best players. LeBron, hey, let's go play with LeBron. We want to just get a championship.
Yeah, but now
we have championship.
But you have that in Brooklyn, and don't forget Clay is coming back to Golden State. The thing is that
and Luka Doncic has himself.
Luka has himself.
That's all he seems to need. And look, we just saw Giannis Antetokounmpo win a championship, right? On what is essentially a very, very good team, and not exactly on that level. But actually, my thing is, to me, I'd rather see what Golden State used to be, or I'd rather see what Brooklyn is, where all the pieces fit complementary, and it's just beautiful basketball, right? Like Russell Westbrook and LeBron together, it's just gonna be guys taking turns at the hoop. It's not gonna be beautiful basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't really see it. I think it's a good regular season move because it allows LeBron to not have to do everything on the court all the time. But in the playoffs, I think it's gonna be an issue. Now Toronto gets, like I said, they got Dragic, and now here's where I think it gets interesting. Ben Simmons can't be on the team, can't be on the Sixers to start the season, right? Because you can't leak that you're trying to trade your superstar on draft night. They apparently had there was a three-way deal that was leaked. There was first of all a deal straight with the Golden State Warriors that was leaked, and then there was a deal with Toronto and the Warriors that was leaked that neither of them went through. And it was clear when the Raptors drafted Barnes that Pascal Siakam, in the words of Kendrick Perkins, R.I.P. Siakam, you don't draft a 4 when your best player is a 4 and expect to keep him, right? So I think that the plan, the rumor was it was a 3-way trade with those teams. I don't know all of the pieces because, again, it didn't happen. But Ben Simmons was going to end up with Golden State. Ben Simmons is
Wiggins is going to Toronto.
Wiggins and somebody else were going to Toronto. I think it was Wiggins and someone else were going to Toronto, and then they were in exchange. Siakam, I believe, was going to Philly with $1 billion picks, and somebody else. It was going to be an interesting trade. I think Simmons with the Golden State Warriors, if they don't have to give up Steph or Clay, is interesting because he can defend the bigs. Yeah. And then on offense, he can play point guard, and we can have Clay and Steph shooting from all over the world, and you can't run with Steph and Clay all game long when they don't have the ball in their hands. Like, they're both incredible spot-up shooters. So, and no player in the league set up more open 3-pointers than Ben Simmons last season. So I thought that was going to be really interesting. But I actually think Toronto might make a move for him now because Goran Dragic's value is that he comes off the books next year. So now in the big free agent year of 2022, a little less exciting because Steph Curry signed his extension he's signed two $200 million deals in a span of 8 years. In a span of 4 years. But still, it gives them flexibility to sign a max player next free agency, and they're going to want $1.5 million picks. So I think that could be interesting.
Man,
the CJ McCollum rumor is still there, but CJ McCollum's not good enough to get you Ben Simmons.
No, yeah, he's more of a complimentary guy. Ben Simmons is your one piece, right? So, I mean, that would have been a crazy trade. I think Ben Simmons would have wanted that trade to go to Golden State just to be able to just play D and get a few buckets here and there. But I don't know.
The problem is two draft picks. Golden State didn't want to include 2 extra draft picks.
That's crazy. But Golden State like to develop, so I mean, they develop well. So I mean, that's what the whole thing is. And Philly is more of we have these 2 big guys. Let's just kind of fill the roles around them. And Toronto is like they're just trying to stay relevant as much as possible. I think Dragic is a huge move for them. Getting rid of Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's like, I mean, we could talk about Toronto sports. Kyle Lowry's one of the top Toronto sports athletes of all time in all sports.
And when you think of the Raptors, you're thinking of him, Tracy McGrady, and Vince Carter, right? Like those are Kawhi got you the title, but
in
terms of long-term players, those 3 guys.
Yeah, but so if you want to talk about like Mount Rushmore of Toronto basketball, it's Lowry. Yeah, Lowry, Carter, Kawhi. Like those are the 3 to me, and just because of what Kawhi did for 1 year. Tracy McGrady too, but to a lesser extent than Vince Carter.
He got much better. Tracy McGrady got much better after he left.
It's true.
He reached his peak a little bit later,
Yeah, exactly. But I love the moves by Miami. I love the moves by Toronto. I think that those are the types of moves that I like to see. I don't like to see LeBron sending a group chat text message being like, "Hey, spots open. Who's coming?" And then everybody's like, "Oh, me."
I like guys trying to have fun with their friends. Like that's all it is.
I don't think that they're friends with him though.
They largely are though. He's very beloved in the league, except for Steph Curry.
I'm not saying he's not a nice guy. But his online persona is awful.
Oh yeah,
his
but so is KD. The thing is, these guys have been pro basketball players essentially since the age of 18, 19. No, in the case of LeBron, 16. Like, no kidding, they're not balanced. Like, no kidding, they don't know how to have an online presence. You know what I mean? Kawhi Leonard turns down the 1-year extension. I think he'll go back to the Clippers, but I'm surprised that deal hasn't happened yet. That he hasn't been extended, and Kawhi Leonard's very picky about the team going out to find pieces to play around him, so maybe he's using that as leverage.
Maybe. I mean, I think all these guys have all the leverage in the fucking world. Because everybody, it's like we said about before about super teams, that super teams are just popping up randomly. You know what I mean? So I think all these guys have leverage to say, hey, if you don't give me what I want, I'm just gonna go join that guy over there.
Yeah.
And
what stops Kawhi from joining the Golden State Warriors, for example, right? Like,
that would be disgusting. I would hate it so much, but that's not what the Golden State Warriors are about. And I respect the Golden State Warriors for kind of, sticking to that.
They signed Kevin Durant.
Yeah, but Kevin Durant, it was different. He was shopping everywhere. Like Kawhi is Kawhi is leaving because he wants to go to one place. Like Kawhi's not going to Indiana. Like, that's for sure.
No. Is that why? Is it because they never choose Indiana, Terry? Is that
they never choose Indiana, for fuck's sakes?
Did I ever tell you the story of how Kawhi? Sorry, not Kawhi. How KD ended up choosing Golden State?
No.
It was because of Miami. Eric Spoelstra and
Okay.
Pat Riley gave him this huge thing about, this is how your shots are very difficult playing with Russ. This is how it is in OKC, their system. It doesn't work for you. We can create a lot around you. We can do this, this, and this. And he's like, wow, I'm blown away. And then he went to Golden State. He's like, oh, I can do this, but with Steph and Clay. Sorry, guys. It's just they have Steph and Clay. So my life's going to be easy there.
They got these guys, yeah.
Yeah, like, who wouldn't want to choose a job with better conditions? And that's what he did,
If KD doesn't get injured and he plays for Miami, and we see the run that Miami goes on with Jimmy Butler last year.
Yeah.
We're talking about Miami Heat with another championship.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Look, they were a couple games away in the bubble, right? So
yeah, exactly.
And they weren't even a team I thought that was. I made a prediction. Hey, I think they're going to be competitive. They may make a run to the finals, but I didn't think they beat the Lakers.
I mean, it would have been a great series against the Lakers.
Yeah.
With KD and Jimmy Butler against AD and LeBron.
Well, all they needed for it to be good was for Dragic and Bam to not get hurt game one. and then
exactly.
It's a different series. Evander Kane.
Idiot. Worst person of all time. Scumbag. D-bag. Loser. What else? I think that just describes him, but I can add words that can describe him, and I think people won't disagree with me. That guy is the biggest piece of shit I've seen in a long time.
I agree. I hope the gambling against the NHL and against his own games is false. That said,
I don't even care about that. The big part about the reason why I don't like this guy is his wife is at her ultimate low. She has no money. And it's known she has no money. It's known she has no money. The guy declared bankruptcy, so she can't gain an income. She can't do anything. She's broke. But yet this guy is still going out and about, posting it online, doing all these things. It's not like what she said is wrong. And then he has the balls to respond saying, he's like, oh, every time I try to FaceTime my daughter, my ex-wife doesn't want to give it to me. She's the crazy person. Like, calling a person crazy that you drove there. Yeah. That's the part that bothers me the most.
And in 2021, still doing the crazy woman trick, like, yeah, that worked in the 90s, and I mean, like, by now we realize that relationships are complicated, and like nobody acts a certain way without a reason, right?
And there's a picture with that girl, like his new girlfriend that she tagged him on.
His new old girlfriend, because that's his ex-girlfriend.
Oh, that's his ex-girlfriend. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna find it here. So she posted a picture where she's like at a club. She might have removed it now. Oh, and she removed it. I saw it the other day, and he was in the background. And it's like he was just in the background, like at the bar chilling. She removed it. That's fucking classic.
Well, she's gonna remove it because it's gonna be used as evidence.
Yeah, and as if hasn't been screenshotted a million times. Yeah. That's the thing too, is like, you're a fucking loser, and it's like you have a problem, you have an addiction. Fine. A lot of people do. I've known people that have gambling addictions. Personally, I've known it, and it's not fun. And is that guy, for him to say, "Oh, I try to FaceTime my daughter, and my ex-wife didn't let me do it." Like, go fuck yourself. Like, you should have no rights to your children.
You and I joke a lot about betting, and we like betting, but obviously, like, it's within our budget.
My bets are $15.
My bets are not even that big. Unless it's fantasy.
I think the more important thing, Terry, is you have the $15 on you when you're betting it, right? This isn't tomorrow's salary that you're betting. This isn't next year's salary. This isn't your house. This isn't your car. This isn't shit that you don't actually have that you're putting on the line to try and win shit back.
One thing I've learned about addiction is the lying that goes hand in hand, and that's when I read a lot of his statements. It looks very carefully prepared. And so it's the sociopathy that comes with addiction in a lot of cases, and it's the way an addict is able to keep being an addict as the people around them notice the illness.
There was a report in The Athletic, actually, that the San Jose Sharks were looking to move him in the offseason simply because his teammates just didn't like him.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they're not happy with him on the team. He doesn't seem like a likable dude. The one thing I did read, I heard, and I think it was actually David Sampson on his Instagram or on his reel. He said that there might be an issue here where the reason why she's alleging betting against the NHL is to try and get a payout quickly, because essentially, like we talked about, she's broke. She's broke because of him. The lawyer might have advised her, hey, look, make a mess so that their lawyers are going to advise him to pay you up front to make this go away.
Because the NHL board of directors is going to be on the San Jose Sharks' ass to deal with this.
Exactly. And they're going to be on, because the future earnings don't affect her, but whatever money he does have that he can, and again, by declaring bankruptcy, it makes it harder for her to seize the money. This is the point where I would like to remind people David Sampson's actually a lawyer by trade, so that's why I found it interesting.
I mean, it could also be she found out he's back with his ex-girlfriend and lost her mind. Because I can understand that.
Yeah, and of course.
I'm going to Europe to party with my ex-girlfriend, stay home and sell her house with our daughter, which you can't feed.
And be pregnant.
And
pack up the house with our, pregnant with our other child. You know what I mean? So, like your point, Terry, is how can you allege she's crazy without saying I drove her to that point, right?
That's the problem. That's the problem, is that his image was always more important than anything else. Like he started off in the NHL by, posting pictures of stacks of money, pretending he's on the phone with a stack of cash on him. He did like this whole. He lived in Vegas, but he lived at a hotel, so you're spending like $2,000 a night just by living there.
Like, I don't understand how these people don't hire a money manager. Just be like, buy a house, guy. Buy a house. Take Vegas an Uber to the Strip. It'll be cheaper.
Buy a sick house in Vegas. All UFC fighters are doing it, and they don't make nearly as much money. Yeah,
there's a ton of golfers.
As much money as
create an LLC that buys the house, and then you rent a house to yourself.
Exactly.
No joke.
Eagle's a nerd tech guy, and he knows.
Look, Eagle, Terry. I'm not as smart as Eagle by a long shot. And our guest that we'll talk to in a minute, she's smarter than all of us combined. But literally, I've talked to Duke about
101.
I've talked to Duke about buying an Airbnb. And the first thing we said is, well, we're not going to do this personally. We'll start a company to do this. So that if it doesn't work, we don't care.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make a difference.
We're just chapter 11 at that point. One last thing before we get to the interview, I just want to touch on it quickly because we didn't touch on it last week. It was kind of breaking while we're recording the show. The reactions to Simone Biles. I know the Twitter comment section is garbage, hellscape. But also when you see media personalities talking about someone who's a sexual abuse survivor, talking about someone who won medals for her country with broken bones in her feet.
Who's sick.
Sorry?
She's sick. She's actually she has a problem with her head because of all the spins.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So we've also learned in that time that there's a condition that they call the twisties, which maybe find a more serious name for something so serious.
I mean, twisties just sounds like something that you'll see in a porn movie.
Or after 18 beers, I get the twisties.
There's actually a website called Twisties, and it's a porn site. I know this.
Nice, naturally.
I know this too. Why do I know this?
I didn't know this.
It's a girl-on-girl site.
Yeah.
There we go.
But so the twisties is where basically while you're in the air, you forget how many turns you've done, how many spins you've done, and it's super dangerous because guess which sport is I believe either right before or right after football when it comes to concussions? Gymnastics. Because when you fall, you're falling from a long, long, long way, right? And so Simone Biles posted a video of her going through a practice routine, unable to land because she kept missing a turn and a half or a half turn or 2 full turns. And it's dangerous to her. B, she's not helping her team. You want people to be a great a great teammate, right? That's what we always say. But then you get assholes like Clay Travis saying like, oh, she's weak, and how dare you call someone weak when she's accomplished more in her 24 years in life than most people ever will, and she's overcome more than most people in her 22 years of life ever will. I don't think she's brave for doing this. I think she did the right thing for her, which is all that matters.
And people are coming out like it's un-American for her to do this.
That's
why?
Insane. It's un-American for you to say that.
It's the most American thing you can do is, free speech, freedom of choice. She chose. She's like, listen, I can't do this right now. It's not for me.
Also, her aunt just died.
She has nothing to prove anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an Olympics that nobody's watching. If there was any time for her to do this, do it now.
But even actually, I would argue the opposite. People are watching because of her, and that's why everyone's so pissed. Because it was like, oh, you're taking away my fun for your own self.
It's not only that. It's like when I already see that, it's like so these people, right? Like Clay Travis or whoever, they all work for or allied with broadcast partners, right? Because I say it all the time. It's like, unfortunately, where we're at now, ESPN, for example. I know Clay Travis is that guy, but like. ESPN is a broadcast partner first and a news agency second, right? And so like that to me is just, it's the cringiest of all cringe. I think the other side of it is a little overstated too. I don't think, and she's done a lot for mental health awareness. I don't think this is specifically it. I just think this is someone making a decision for her. I've had days where I couldn't go to work, right? We've all had that. So why is it different for her? It shouldn't be. She made the right decision for her and her team. And
the shocking part to me isn't that losers like Clay Travis are coming out and ripping on her. The shocking part to me is there's actually athletes that are coming out and saying, "Oh, she's weak," all this stuff like what she should be doing it, whatever bullshit. She's mentally weak. Yeah, she's mentally weak at this point because she's gone through so much shit in the last couple of years that she's like, listen, I can't. If I go out there and stink up the fucking mats, that just shows negatively to my country. So I don't want that to happen. She felt like she couldn't perform to her the best that she can. She's taking a sick day. And it's unfortunate the sick day came at the gold medal day. And maybe she would have won. Maybe she wouldn't have. And if she went out there, we'd be talking.
Bronze, by the way, despite
she won
all
bronze
this.
in beam, and she technically got a silver because of the team event and everything. But still,
there you go. So fuck everybody.
You know what? That's the thing. Like, despite all that, despite all these people who have achieved nothing, going after someone who's probably there's things that she's done in her sport that are named after her because no one in the world has done it before her or since. So, you know what? Like I said, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't. I know we live in the hot take world. She doesn't have to be a hero. She doesn't have to be the I was gonna say goat, but I meant goat like the original meaning of the word.
She actually has goat on her jersey, which is hilarious.
I know, but the thing is,
we're pro robbery podcast. We're also a pro Simone Biles podcast.
Absolutely.
You guys want to do a flow chart quickly here? Terry,
sure.
I want you to answer this. Are you a gymnast?
Yes I saw this. No, I'm not.
No, so instead you are a conservative pundit who has never so much done a cartwheel in his life, yet alone landed a Yurchenko double pike. But let's say you were. Have you ever competed on an international stage as a world championship, Pan American Games, or Summer Olympics?
I do not recall, so I'm going to have to say no, Eagle.
Yeah,
so I mean, I was drinking a lot in my 20s, so maybe, but I doubt it.
Well, let's say no, but I expect black athletes to put their minds and bodies at risk purely for my entertainment and sense of so-called national pride because I have always viewed black Americans' lives as expendable. But let's say you were one of those world champions competitions. Did you win 4 gold medals in women's gymnastics in 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro?
I don't think so. No, I did not.
I've not yet been to Rio de Janeiro.
Hey, did I win gold medal in 2016? No, because you're fucking fat as shit. There you go. That's me.
And I was going to say, no, you just choose to be on the wrong side of every single issue because grievance politics is a convenient way to insert myself into a national conversation in order to try and stay relevant despite the fact that all my ideas are objectively bad and unpopular. But let's say you did win 4 gold medals at it. Have you single-handedly revolutionized your sport, including but not limited to inventing 4 mind-bogglingly complex original moves that are now named after you?
The options are yes, I'm literally Simone Biles, or no, shut the fuck up.
No, I am not Simone Biles. I did not achieve anything in my life other than I write blogs and I like to complain about people that have more athletic ability and more successful than me.
Naturally, that's what we do,
guys. We've solved all the problems using a flowchart.
And what I love, and we'll end on this because we got to get to the interview. People like to talk about if the real goats don't quit. Michael Jordan left the sport of basketball. Guess what? It was for mental health because his dad had just died.
And maybe a gambling debt. Conspiracy theory.
Maybe a gambling suspension that we don't like to talk about. So With that said, we're going to talk to Stephanie Medeiros. She is the e-mobility global accounts leader at ABB. They're allied with Formula E, and she's going to talk to us about the Formula E race in Berlin, August 14th and 15th, coming up next. Welcome back. Even though we're recording this first, joining us is Stephanie Medeiros. Stephanie, you're joining myself and Terry on Not Sauce for Work on the Hot Sauce Sports podcast network. Stephanie is joining us. She works at ABB. They are related to Formula E, which is it's pretty awesome, actually. When you really start to look into it, dig into it, it's a really cool up and coming sport. And Stephanie will tell us all about that. First of all, Steph, how's it going?
Good.
Once in a while, I may sound a little too familiar, but Stephanie's actually the person in this chat who I've known the longest time. Stephanie and I went to high school together.
I'm offended.
Winner.
Yeah, I know, Terry. It's a bond longer than yours. Yours and mine. Yeah, Stephanie and I went to high school together. We worked together in a terrible telemarketing job that was between sort of real jobs. And so what she did was she went into something to help use sustainable materials to improve our earth. And I started a podcast network with you guys. So which one of us did the important work? Obviously her.
Both very impactful for sure.
What was Pease like in high school? What are we dealing with here?
He was known as like the nice guy. He was always like the nice, dependable guy that everyone liked. I don't think anyone had anything bad to say.
What happened?
Completely the opposite of what he is now. Pease is like, other than today, I've never seen Pease on time for any of the episodes.
It's because I respect Stephanie and her time.
Oh, okay.
And
so you don't respect.
You can infer whatever you like from that. But yeah, that's essentially why. Well, Stephanie, you work wild hours. Like you were telling me that your day typically starts at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, not all the time at 3 a.m., but that's the perks of having a global role so I'm based in Montreal, which is great for time zones in Europe, but then in the Asia time zones where it's 12 hours in advance, it's not so much fun. So typically my day starts at, the bulk of all the activities that I have are mostly in Europe. So my day typically starts for sure at 5 a.m., sometimes at 3 a.m. whenever things are really urgently needed. But yeah, that's, like I said, that's the perks of having a global job, but I love what I'm doing. So definitely not complaining. I just have a little bit more gray hair from like lack of sleep, but that's fine.
Gray hair shows wisdom. You know what I mean? I finally got a few in my beard and I'm like, man, I'm the smartest guy of all time.
Yeah, that's how we do it. That's
how it works. Science.
Pease, you're a genius then.
That must be the case. I do the opposite. I'm up till about usually 3 o'clock in the morning. Usually the guys will be getting stories that I found on the internet that we're going to talk about on the show, or I'll be writing or catching up on sports that I couldn't watch during the day that we need to talk about on the show. So I live the opposite lifestyle. Stephanie, so what got you into this atmosphere, into to Formula E and sustainable racing?
Yeah, so if I start back from in school, so my background is in engineering because I've always loved technology. And I always I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but I like to have like a positive impact. And so making the world a better place by using technology is exactly where I wanted to be headed. So after I graduated, and I'm a Montrealer as well, so I graduated from McGill. So after that, I did, various roles I started at ABB, so the company that I'm in right now. And then I stepped into the EV world about 2016. And as soon as I stepped into it, I fell in love. There's certain things that, you have such a high regard, but then once you step into it, the EV world and the EV industry, it's fast paced, it's dynamic. The people are just incredible because they're super passionate. It's every conference that I would go to, everyone kind of is on drinking the same Kool-Aid. And at first it's a little bit weird, but they're all like that. And it's great. And so again, going back to having technology, so EV chargers and electric vehicles, this is what the world needs to, clean up our air and make it better for generations to come. So 2016, I got put in place to grow the Canadian business for EV chargers. And then from that, I stepped into the Formula E world, which was extremely exciting because, I'm a Montrealer. So for me, I love Formula One because, we're lucky enough to have that in the city. And then e-mobility is another thing that I really love. So Formula E is the perfect marriage of both. And it's exciting. And we'll get into a little bit of the details as well, but it's really making the world a better place. And so with what I'm doing, it's also helping define what the future of e-mobility is, because it's a test bed for e-mobility technologies. That's why you have the big car OEMs and the big teams that are part of it. And so you're kind of getting a glimpse of what's going to happen in the future. What's the world of e-mobility going to look like in the future? So yeah, so it's been exciting. So when I said before, I love my job. Like that's an understatement. Like I definitely love what I'm doing. So those 3 a.m. calls aren't so bad when you're doing like cool stuff like that.
So me being a fellow nerd, my only question to you is, what technology is currently being worked on that you can see being available to consumers within the next, let's say, 5 years?
So there's a lot. And again, so the big car manufacturers who have teams, just like with Formula One, that have teams into Formula E. So there's a lot of improvements that they see, whether it's in the powertrain, so improvements on the powertrain design, efficiencies, software is a big one. And so, Formula E being a test bed for these new technologies. So all these teams are putting the latest technologies into their designs and then pushing them to the limits, and then taking that into their mass market electric vehicles that they're going to have, that you and I can drive in our everyday lives. I think something that's really surprising, or when I found that out, I think that was really, really cool, is the speed and the turnaround of having these technology improvements from the racetrack to the cars themselves. Because typically, I think in most motorsports, that turnaround happens in like 5 to 10 years. But in Formula E, that turnaround happens as of 2 years. So it's really, really fast. So these impacts are seen right away. And again, that's why these car OEMs are so excited to be part of this race for sure. And that's on board the vehicle. And then outside the vehicle, there's charging. So it's all these technologies that are surrounding the races, because the race itself, yes, it's motorsport, but it's also kind of like a mini microgrid that goes to every city, because these races happen in city centers. So they're not tucked away in racetracks far away. The majority of these races are in city centers. So you can imagine if you're like in downtown Paris and you need a lot of power, you need a lot of energy also for these races, because you have to charge the cars. You have these like fan zones where so it's a really, really big setup of lots of megawatts. So you can't go to downtown Paris and just plug into the grid and say, hey, I'm just going to suck up your energy. They're not going to like that. So that's why I call it kind of like a mini microgrid, and it's a traveling circus of a microgrid. So there's all these really cool technologies that you will see that, when you're watching this on TV, or even when you're watching a race, you don't really know what's going on behind the fence. So just in terms of engineering, it's just really, really cool. And again, all these lessons learned that we get from the charging, all these technologies that are there, then we take them into systems and solutions to make them really reliable and robust.
I'm taking a look. I have no idea. So Eagle said he's the nerd of the group. I'm the complete meathead of the group. I'm the other side. I'm like hard nosed. I'm so not environmentally friendly. I'll just buy a Hummer. You know what I mean? Like I'll just buy a Hummer.
Yeah, but there's electric Hummers now. It's the new thing.
Yeah, and the smallest village.
That comes electric.
That's it. But I honestly do want a Tesla. They do look nice. I tried my stepbrothers. I'm not a huge fan of it, but they do look nice. It is appealing, the idea. But now, the first thing I thought of when I heard when Pete's talking about Formula E, I'm like, who is the pit crew? Like, is there a pit crew? Are you guys like changing oil, changing tires quickly? Like, how does it work? I'm trying to imagine it in my head.
Well, the first thing is definitely tune into a race, because then you'll get the feel of how it is. And they're 45 minutes, so not a big time commitment.
Oh, nice.
But nice, not that long. But, to answer your question, there's been a huge evolution from the cars. So the first race was actually in Beijing in 2014. And the technology at that time, especially when battery technologies were available at that time, the technology wasn't good enough for the race, for one car or one battery to finish the entire race. So what they would do, so this is generation 1 car. So what they would do is halfway through those 45 minutes, the drivers would go to their pit stop, change cars to a car with a fresh battery, and then continue the race. So that's Gen 1. Gen 2 is the version that's currently being driven right now. So again, it's showing the technology evolution where the batteries can now sustain an entire race. So even in the same footprint, you can have a race, or you can have a battery that can complete the entire race. Pit stop charging. So we're not going to have any tire changes, but pit stop charging is going to come in Gen 3. So Gen 3 is going to start at the end of 2022. And that's going to, again, show the evolution of e-mobility and technology. And that's going to have that car that's going to come to the pit stop, get a charge of up to 600 kilowatts. It's not fully announced how fast it's going to be, but it'll be up to 600 kilowatts. So that'll be fast. And I think what's really cool about that is that normally charging happens, when you think of the majority of charging that happens is at home, and people take hours. Like my electric car charges within 10 hours because I have a very small charger. And then if I take it to a faster charger, like a public charger, that can go faster. But we're still talking about from hours, and then fast is about 30 minutes. Like, wow, that's really, really fast to charge your battery. When we're talking about charging powers up to 600 kilowatts, we're talking about charging in seconds. It's not going to be as fast as a pit stop in Formula One, which is ridiculously fast, like less than 7 seconds, but it'll still be in the seconds range, 1 minute, 60 seconds, but it'll be fast. And again, it's really to showcase the evolution in technology, and really to showcase to people, look, this is available here and now, and it's great.
So the best part about watching Formula One and all these like NASCAR and all that stuff is watching some of the pit crew get smoked by like a flying tire or something. So we're just not going to to see that in Formula E. But I'll enjoy it.
Maybe not in Gen 3. Maybe not Gen 3.
maybe a flying battery. Just like
or a charging cable. So yeah, I actually watched one of the races, Stephanie, when we had it 1 year in Montreal. I saw you were posting about it on Instagram, and so I said, I got to check this out. It looks really cool, and I did. It was really enjoyable. It was fun. I liked that. Again, it wasn't very long. That to me was something I found really compelling, because someone who likes racing but is not a huge fan, it's a way to sort of wet your toes, so to speak. What would you tell someone who's looking to get into the sport? How would you sort of position it for them? What's there to look out for? Who are the top brands? Do they have like a top driver the same way like Lewis Hamilton is that in the F1? Do we have any of that yet in FE?
So one of the appeals about Formula E is that, unlike other motorsports where it's super predictable, you know exactly who's going to win. With Formula E, it's definitely a wild card. And actually, I think in the last 5 or 6 races, there was a different winner. There's just a completely new winner. And I think that really speaks to, that is excitement part, because it's not predictable. It's really not predictable. So really overall, there's not one like, oh, you have to watch out for these guys or this driver. It's just super unpredictable, but that's what makes it really exciting and fun to watch as well. So for people who are I'll just finish with, sure. I think something that's really cool is they make it as interactive as possible too. So you have cool new things where people, like the audience, can interact. They have something called the fan boost. So that gives a little bit of boost of power to the driver, the fan favorite. So that's where people can vote. And they have other things too that are really trying to integrate and getting the audience as involved as possible.
So one of the things that people obviously love about Formula One or any other type of motor racing is the sound of the cars, right? The engine roaring, the acceleration, burning the brakes, hitting a wall potentially if you're Jacques Villeneuve. But the joke about electric cars is there is no sound, right? It doesn't sound the same way. So what does a Formula E car, I guess, sound like? And, to try and get that same sensation, what's the, I guess, experience that you can give the viewers? So I want to kind of imitate an electric car so you can get the feeling, but that's just not going to give you the full picture. So what it sounds like is exactly, I know this sounds really kind of cheesy, but it sounds like a kind of a miniature electric car, but much, much bigger. And of course, I'm in the industry and maybe I'm a bit biased, but I love that sound. Like even my electric car, it has a little bit of a humming. You can hear the electric motor. I love that sound. I do appreciate
Formula One and, you know, that sound. But at the end of the day, it's really loud. It's super loud. Like, that's why these races for Formula E can happen in city centers, because you can have a conversation with someone else. You'll still hear the cars, and there's the tires sounds as well. So you'll hear that. And in terms of action, there definitely is that action when you see the races. And especially if you're, let's say you're live and you're in a grandstand where there's like a hairpin, you're going to see lots of contact, and you're going to see, you know, like, knock on wood, there wasn't something that was like super fatal yet, which is great, but you definitely will see that action. So yeah, that sound, I don't know, to me, I love it. And I think it also showcases a new generation. I'm not a new generation, but when you see little kids, like, I know kids that their parents only drive electric, and when they get into an internal combustion engine car, they're like, oh, what's that sound? Like, they don't like it because that's what they know. So, I mean, this is just coming. This is not something that maybe it's going to come. Like, this is going to come. Car manufacturers have already committed, some as soon as 2030, that they're only producing electric cars. So internal combustion engine cars are going to be like the horse and buggy, or horses from, you know, the start of the century. So it's coming. So it's just going to be a transition that, we'll get used to. And just like for me, yes, I appreciate horses. And when I want to see a horse race, I'll go to the racetrack. But that's like something that's like, you know, very novelty and cool. I think that's what's going to happen eventually.
So you're saying my Hummer is going to lose value in about 20 years.
Get an electric Hummer. We just said it.
An electric Hummer.
Vintage.
Okay, yeah.
It's your vintage garage, Terry.
Yeah.
No, so I will say, one of the things I noticed when I got into my buddy's Tesla is it weirdly reminded me of, and the comparison is going to sound ridiculous, but just follow me because I'm a little nuts. It reminded me of when I went down to Vegas one year and rented a Dodge Charger V8 with a supercharger, and there's sort of that sound of the supercharger that kind of vaguely sounds like a power drill. And I found it was a similarity. So those two cars couldn't be more opposite, right? Like literally the car that it drinks gas. I think I had to fill up like 8 times in Nevada desert, which is terrifying. And because you don't know where the next gas station is going to be. And then you have the other one that doesn't even use gas, but it had sort of a similarity in sound, and it had sort of the charging sort of sound that you hear when you're in the vehicle. Stephanie, I want to ask, I know I've read that Formula E is looking to move into Vancouver in 2022. What are the chances? We've had a race in Montreal that we talked about before. What are the chances that we'll have it again in Montreal? And what are the chances that we'll see it pop up in other Canadian cities?
Yeah, so for me, as a Montrealer, I was so over the moon to see the race in Montreal.
I remember your Instagram was like nothing but that.
Yeah.
Like 12 posts a day, nonstop.
I was like reliving it over and over because it was just amazing. So it was great to have the race in Montreal. That was short-lived, unfortunately. So the races are no longer in Montreal. I think the good news overall is that for Canadians, we're still going to have this race. So it was announced about 2 weeks ago that Formula E is coming to Vancouver. So the new race schedule was added. And so you have other cool cities like Cape Town is part of it as well. And it's going to be in Vancouver. So not in Montreal, obviously, but I'm personally so excited to see that in Vancouver because Montreal is a beautiful city. Of course, we're, being from Montreal, we get it. But Vancouver, and I've seen some renderings of what the racetrack is going to look like, and the backdrop is just stunning because Vancouver is obviously a beautiful city. So it's going to be fun and it's going to be exciting. So that's July 2022 in Vancouver. So definitely go if you're able to. That's cool.
Like we're not really a NASCAR or F1 show, so maybe we can adopt Formula E as sort of our own.
That's a great idea.
True love, our own passion.
The future is electric, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, Stephanie, the next race is in Berlin, if I'm not mistaken, August 14th and 15th, right?
Correct.
And where can people in Canada, in Montreal, where can people catch this race?
So there's various stations. Off the top of my head, as a Canadian, I should know that. But off the top of my head, I don't know what the stations are. But if you just look at the Formula E, whether it's the Instagram pages or Facebook pages, the day before or 2 days before they post where you can see it. And so there's
I know
various.
it used to be on TSN. I don't know if the broadcast deal was extended, but I know.
Yeah.
It says currently 2021 TSN.
Oh, there we go. So yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be
Nice.
That's good.
broadcast.
That's awesome.
Or watch it live. I hear
Yeah.
that Germany is accepting people now.
Also, is it true that Germany, as they said, they're not going to have any, they're not going to have produced any non-electric cars by the year 2025 or something like that? It was like 3 years ago they came out with a thing where they're, as of this date, they're not producing any more electric cars in Germany completely.
So there's different types of legislations that are out there. So some are the car manufacturers themselves that outright say, as of this date, we're no longer going to produce the electric cars. And then the second thing is in cities, the cities themselves, and London's a big one like that too. And then Germany also has various cities that have said that they have these no emission or zero emission zones. So that means you can't drive. If you have a car that's emitting pollution, so internal combustion engine car, then you can't drive in that city. And you've already started seeing this in other parts of the world too, where if you want to have an internal combustion engine car, then you just have to pay higher fees, or kind of like a carbon fee. So that's definitely started. But yeah, Germany is definitely very progressive in putting these legislatives, I'm having a hard time with that word, sorry, and making sure that, they want to reduce the amount of polluting cars on the road.
The Autobahn's going to be a lot quieter.
Yeah.
We'll
have that sound like the supercharger.
Yeah, it'll be fast and quiet. Yeah.
I like that.
Stephanie, my last question for you is just regarding, I'll call it the traditional power grid when it comes to combustion engines. You have a gas station on every block and corner and everything. In the future, obviously, you're going to have your charging stations at home, potentially charging stations, parking lots, etc. How do you envision the next generation power grid evolving in cities?
So there's two things to that. The first thing is the power grid, or the fueling grid, or how fueling happens. And then the other thing is the power grid, because there's going to be a lot of demand for power because everyone's charging almost at the same time. So first, in terms of the fueling grid. So fueling is just going to be different. For me, what I love about electric cars is that it's as seamless as possible. And it's so convenient, because for me, I don't go out of my way to fuel or charge up my electric car. I just charge it wherever I am that's convenient. So the majority of my charging happens at home, and now I'm not driving that much. So like really, really majority, like 95% of my charging happens at home. And then the other charging happens when I'm, out and about. Let's say I'm at a grocery store and or I'm at a parking lot and they have a charging station. Then I just plug it in. So for me, it's super seamless. I'm not going out of my way to go to a gas station to fuel up my car, to charge up my car. And that's the beauty of it. Of course, that's within the city. And, the majority of drivers, they have their driving, or the charging needs that they have, or like the power that they need is kind of lower, the energy, because they travel, just a few kilometers here and there, and then they're fine. When we go outside of the cities, then you're going to start to have intercity charging. So these are the really, really fast chargers. So let's say from Montreal to Toronto, you're going to have these fast chargers along the way. So it's the same concept as fueling. It's the same thing. You go on a road trip, most often or not, depending how long your journey is, you're going to have to stop and gas up. At least the good news in the technology for charging is that, today you can charge at a charger that's 350 kilowatts. So to put that in perspective, the majority of the public charger, the fast chargers, are 50 kilowatts. Now you have 350 installed. So 350 can charge your car in less than 8 minutes. So that's really not that far off from, a fuel pump. So it's really not that bad.
Terry, you don't even have time to take a shit and your Hummer's going to get charged.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
I'll be in and out.
Stephanie, thank you Sorry, go ahead.
And to finish that thought, because the second part was the power grid, and I want to bring that up, not to be too technical, but it's also very important because people ask that question, like the grid is not going to be able to support that. If you have everyone electrifying their cars, then you can't support it. And the answer to that is that, well, that's not really correct, because yes, if everyone comes home and charges their car at the same exact time, then you're going to have a
Everyone running their washing machine at the same time, right?
Everyone going to the gas pump at the exact same time.
Exactly. Yeah. You're going to have lineups and chaos, and people are going to be super angry. So that actually doesn't really happen. Or, what's envisioned in the future is that there's going to be some sort of managing of the charger. So like you yourself, like people go home not at the same time, they'll go at different times. And then the other thing too is that, so in terms of power, that's, again, everyone coming at the same home at the same time, then the grid can't handle that. But in terms of the energy, there's definitely enough energy to supply that.
Yeah, and there is a lot of misinformation about a lot of this stuff too. I remember having a conversation with someone even a couple of years ago saying, yeah, but like the environment, it's too late to do anything. And he basically like grabbed his laptop and Googled, what can we do right now to help the environment? And there's like only 80 billion results, and a lot of them are super simple things. And it's a lot of what we hear and see are, of course, supplanted by lobbies. And a lot of misinformation is people like myself and Terry who are not informed, don't go out of the way often to speak to someone like you, Stephanie, who has the information. So it's definitely wonderful to have had you on. Do check out the race on August 14th and 15th. That race is going to be in Berlin. It's Formula E once again. And that was Stephanie Medeiros joining us from ABB. Thank you so much for your time, Stephanie.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Same here.
And we're back. Guys, I don't know about you, but I actually learned something today.
I did too.
I learned a lot. I learned that Hummers aren't good electric cars unless they take. Are
the electric ones called Hum-E's? Please tell me they're called Hum-E's.
Oh, if they're not called Hum-E's.
Hummer, sponsor the show. We got lots of great ideas.
I just had a really terrible idea. I can totally see Terry having a gas generator in the trunk of his electric car,
in case,
which he then uses to charge his electric car when he runs out of battery juice.
Well, because here's the thing.
100% I would do that.
Of all the people in the show, all the people at Hot Sauce Sports, which 15, 16 people we are, whatever. Who's the most likely to run out of charge in their electric car?
Oh, it's Terry.
By a lot, because I went years and years and years of my life without knowing anyone who ran out of gas, and then I became your friend, and that happened so many times.
I would totally bet on that, and I would absolutely win money.
Yeah,
it's happened 4 times in the last I'd say 24 months.
That's insane. That's insane.
It's never happened to me in my life.
You're the first person I've met where that's happened. A time.
But it only happened once before that, and I've been driving since I was 17. Yeah. And I'm 35 now. So
what would be the odds of Terry running out of battery juice on his car?
But so they wouldn't pay. You'd have to bet 100 to win 102.
Yeah, it would be minus 10,000.
Yeah,
I mean it's still $2 or something.
Yeah,
so.
it'd be free money, but it's a volume play. It's a volume play.
Where you can make a lot of money.
You add it on a parlay. You add it on a parlay to Hot Streak Fantasy. So Hot Streak Fantasy is the best fantasy app in the world right now. Ask anybody. Ask Warren Buffett. He'll tell you. Hot Streak, best fantasy app. They were in basketball before. Now they just got into the baseball. They're in the MLB. They're going to the NFL. Use Hot Sauce promo code. They'll match your initial deposit as a bonus. You're betting $5, $10 at a time, $25 at a time. You pick 2 to 3 players. Are they going to get a hit, home run, out, whatever it is? You have all the options available. You pick that and you win. I actually made a bet last night. I think I won last second. I'm just going to check right now. And I was playing the Mets game last night. And I was making some bets. And I won.
I've lost all my baseball bets so far. I need to learn. I need to understand it better on the baseball side.
So I bet 5 to win $1.46 because I didn't hit my parlay. So I didn't hit my total streak. So you have to get a hot streak, which is 3. And but it's great. Honestly, I love it. I love playing it. It makes baseball fun during the regular season.
So guys, don't be like Evander Kane. Don't get a bookie. Download the app.
Yeah, if you don't want to be an asshole, a disrespectful piece of shit to your wife/ex-wife, you don't want to be addicted to gambling, get this app. It's very minimal, $5, $10, $25 bets, and you're happy and you're having fun with your buddies.
Yeah, and you know what? This can sort of spice up your sporting night. Just allow you to enjoy that. But if you want to spice up your meat, Terry, what would you do?
I would go to Mike's BBQ Rub, and I would visit Mike's BBQ Rub MTL.com and use hot sauce 10 for 10% off the entire site. That truffle sauce is mustard truffle is like number one. I'll never say anything, but truffle is like a close second.
It's up there. I love any buffalo like vinegar based hot sauces. So it's a slam dunk for me.
Yeah, the rubs. If you're, it's barbecue season. It's people renting chalets, Labor Day weekend. Stack up, get the ghost bourbon sauce. Get the barbecue rub. Rub that shit all over your. Do it today for Labor Day weekend, and marinate that thing for 4 weeks, and you'll thank me later.
Or you'll be very upset.
Or you'll be
one way or
very
another,
upset.
you'll have a reaction, right? And that's
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
can hope
some
for.
sort of reaction.
All
You'll
right,
shit your ass so that it's so good.
Let's get some rapid fire out of the way here. We're going to start off with clean out your cubsicle.
Cubicle, like a cubicle.
Oh, I like
Cubicle.
icicle better.
Yeah.
But Cubs
You
still
don't clean
actually
out
does sound
an
better.
icicle.
But you don't clean it out. That's the only thing.
Eagles having a rough show today, man.
It's
Yeah, I know.
the
Even if
Chicago
I can
Cubs-
read that properly, then there's a problem.
The Chicago Cubs have traded several players who have been with the team since the 2016 World Series win. So Chris Bryant was traded to the Giants, Anthony Rizzo was traded to the Yankees, and Javier Baez to the Mets.
Bias.
All three players homered in their first appearance with their new clubs. It is
I love it.
destiny, clearly.
I love it. I mean, listen, I'm a pseudo Cubs fan. Like I'm a pseudo Bears guy. Like I feel like if I was born and I was able to choose a city that I would live in, I'd choose Chicago. I feel like I'm a Chicago type of guy.
I was
Mo
gonna
Khan's
say
the same
there's
thing,
there's an alternate reality where you're living in Chicago. I can see it.
yeah, like I'd be from like I don't know if I'd be from like South Chicago. What's it called? I'm thinking of Southeast Boston. What am I thinking of?
You'd be
Hey,
in
I
the
don't know.
Boston part of Chicago. I see.
I'd be a Cubs fan, not a White
Fair.
Sox fan. You know what I mean? Like I'd be a Northerner, and I feel like I'd love a few pierogies and stuff. And I love the fact that they just sold the house fire sale, and now as a New York Mets fan, we get the benefit from Javi Baez.
Oh, absolutely. And look, the Mets are clearly making a move for now. The thing is, the names mean more than the players do at this point, right? Like they're not what they were in 2016. That's 5 years ago at this point, right? So, the general manager's doing the right thing. He's getting assets in return. They need to rebuild. You can't hold on to the players until they're useless because you don't want to have an Albert Pujols situation, right? You don't want to be carrying his corpse around from game to game. I think it's good for the parties involved, right? Because you still can squeeze something out of them, especially a team like the Mets. The Yankees are a weird sort of mess, but they're still competitive. And I like Chris Bryant going to the Giants, who are surprisingly good this season. So, teams who were in spots to make a move made moves, and the Cubs benefit by growing the farm system and getting the pieces to maybe make trades to get players later on.
I gotta love it, man. I love the moves for them. It's good for them, and I love what they're calling Chris Bryant in San Francisco. They're calling him Giant Bryant. Beautiful.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good name.
All right, next, a penny saved. Canadian swimmer and Canada's most decorated Olympian ever, Penny Oleksiak, tweeted this on Twitter, which basically says, I just Googled Canada's most decorated Olympian, and my name came up. I want to thank that teacher in high school who told me to stop swimming to focus on school because swimming wouldn't get me anywhere. This is what dreams are made of. She then got shit on like crazy on Twitter from all the educators and had to push this one out too, which said, also in reference to my last tweet, no shade at all toward teachers in general. My sister is a teacher and I see her inspiring kids every day. Most of my teachers saw the vision and pushed me towards it. That one who constantly dragged me down though. Whoa.
Yeah.
Worst of all time.
Go ahead, Terry.
She's 1,000,000% right. How many? We've all had one teacher that was
I've had
just
many.
It was just awful.
Yeah.
Just shut the fuck up, man. Like I know you hate your life. Don't project your shitty life onto me. If I'm trying to do this because I want to be successful, then I'm gonna try to do this. If it doesn't work out, that's on me, not on you.
Here's another thing. You can swim and go to class. Like lots of people do it.
There's a lot of people that
Universities
get
have athletics programs, right? So
A
like
lot of people have D1 scholarships at good schools.
exactly.
Harvard has a swimming team. Like, go fuck yourself, teach.
Here's the thing, Terry. I've been working in the school system since I was 19 years old. I'm an educator. I'm a lifetime educator. Both my parents are teachers. My brother's a teacher. I saw the tweet and at no point was offended because it would be asinine to get offended by that. She's referring to a specific person she had a problem with. That's fine.
She should have named the person.
Yeah. In fact, she did that person a kindness by not tagging them.
Exactly.
You know what I
You're
mean?
welcome.
So,
and if you know which teacher you are, then you're already halfway there to being I'd say not remorseful, but to being woke, I'd say. If you know who you are and you're able to acknowledge the fact that you told this person to quit their dreams to go to school, then you're halfway to being a normal human being.
Yeah. In fact, that's how you should react when reading that too. Be like, yeah,
exactly.
She was right.
That was
fucked up. In fact, if you can come out and say that and just handle the fact that she has to deal with people who are being assholes to her because of you, that would be a good time to speak up.
Great job.
Vote.
All right, next. He went to Indy, and Indianapolis Colts new quarterback Carson Wentz will be out 5 to 12 weeks with a foot injury, which apparently has been there for years since high school, but only now is bothering him.
He has loose bones. How's that a thing?
2 days after that's reported and he comes out of successful surgery, left guard Quentin Nelson has been ruled out with the exact same injury, going for the exact same surgery, and will be out for the exact same time frame.
Wow.
Am I the only one who doesn't trust the Colts medical staff after they fucked up Andrew Luck?
It goes further than that. Because Peyton Manning, why did he end up going to the Broncos? If you remember, a few weeks before the season started, all of a sudden he had this neck issue and had to miss a year. That's how they got Andrew Luck in the first place. I don't know everything that goes into this. I'm not anyone in medicine. I don't really understand this, but I do know this. It's 3 times in very short period of time that this has happened in your organization.
And Andrew Luck,
Peyton Manning,
Bob Sanders.
Oh my God.
Joseph Adai.
How does anybody play there?
It's like Donald Brown.
Yeah, Donald Brown fell. Edgerrin James kind of got banged up at the end of his career too.
Yeah, but he was there towards the end of his career.
He was there for longer,
yeah. There was a lot, man. Like there's something going on there.
Don't go there. The last time you should go to Indy is for the combine.
Yeah.
And if they draft you, demand a trade. Even if you're a 7th round pick, demand a trade. It's the only way to save your life.
Only way.
All right.
Why would you play in the AFC South anyway?
Rocker me like a hurricane. The New York Mets have decided not to sign first-round pick Kumar Rocker. Agent Scott Boras will keep his client from returning to Vanderbilt, where he was drafted from, but insists he will be ready. Buster Onloy on Twitter has basically said...
Buster Only. One of the most famous baseball journalists of all time.
It's baseball. Nobody cares. MLB and the Players Association are jointly responsible for this, but how absurd is it that a team can draft a player and choose not to sign him, and then the player can't sign anywhere under the MLB umbrella? Makes no fucking sense.
So I'm inclined to agree with that sentiment because, look, we know service time manipulation's a thing in the MLB. We talked about Chris Bryant, right? The Cubs kept Chris Bryant in the minors for way too long just because they didn't want to have to pay him twice. And they, of course, got rid of him before that big contract ended. So the thing is that Scott Boras is also playing the angel here.
Yeah.
Scott Boras refuses to have team doctors look at his clients before they get drafted. Instead, he has a stable of doctors, of independent doctors that he sends them to, who never report any bad news. He arrived into the Mets organization, and there was a whole bunch of undisclosed medical information, and that's why the Mets didn't do it. And the thing is, baseball prospects, it's like a one. I think it's like you need to draft something like 14 players to find anyone who's serviceable. So it's a really low rate of return on investment because you're drafting guys.
Sorry, you agree with me, but I don't agree with Olney.
I don't agree with Olney either. I think the sentiment of what he's saying is right, but in this case here, again, I think as we're Mets fans that we actually looked into, like, why did you sign this guy?
Yeah.
The thing is, they get their 11th pick back, and they got a guy essentially who failed the physical. So, I understand what Olney's saying. And in general, teams manipulate service time. In general, teams control these guys for too long and put them in bad spots. I don't think that's the case here.
if you decide, if there's like some rule in place where the Mets say, you know what, we don't, this guy's not healthy enough, we're not going to take him. We drafted him in the first round, whatever, we can't take him. He should be up for grabs. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, he should be a free agent.
He should be a free agent, and the Mets should get that pick back if they can prove that there was information held by Scott Boras and these medical doctors.
Which is easy to do. Mind you, Scott Boras is also basically the head of the players union right now. So
he's also like the Drew Rosenhaus of baseball. He's also
because the players got raked over the coals when Tony Clark was the head of the union.
Yeah.
So now Scott Boras brought in like a bulldog to represent the players, because all of the top players are all the ones on the executive panel are all his athletes.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Went out and hired this guy. Baseball's going to have a strike soon.
Yeah. And Scott Boras is going to be at the tip of it. And there's going to be a documentary about Scott Boras, like 30 for 30, or like some sort of scandal.
Yeah.
Something is going to be about it.
And last topic for today, assault on the riverboat. We talked a couple weeks ago about the new NFL policy for the whole COVID protocols and the vaccinations, etc., and the player responses. During a press conference, Coach Ron Rivera expresses frustration about unvaccinated players, essentially. And so TJ Ward, a member of WFT, decided to tweet, "Don't blame others for your lifelong health decisions." Rivera, to remind everyone, is currently in remission from cancer treatment that he underwent last year and was trying to coach throughout the majority of it. So yes, I too would hate my life if I chose to get cancer. That's not how cancer works.
It's not.
Fuck, man. Sometimes I just wish I had cancer.
Why?
Imagine. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were saying. I was like, wait, what? Because it's such a ridiculous concept that I didn't even get the joke.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I don't even know what TJ Ward is trying to say. Like, what health decisions is he talking about? Is he talking about the cancer, or is he talking about like just living a healthy lifestyle? And I think that TJ Ward isn't articulate enough to be able to convey this message. Where I understood what he was trying to say. He's trying to say, if you were healthy your entire life, you drank water, you ate, you did the right thing, you wouldn't need to take the vaccine to stay healthy, because there's a lot of science that proves that if you're just healthy on a day-to-day basis, then you can fight off the vaccine. You can, whatever, your body can build antibodies quicker. I get it, all that shit. But at the end of the day, leave this guy's name out of it. The guy's literally gone through hell, health-wise.
It's look. The thing is, this is becoming an issue that is becoming political in nature, and where people just are picking sides and just throwing stuff back and forth. And it doesn't need to be that. It doesn't, and especially not by name. The thing is that all of this, the whole policy, when I read it, I was like, oh, the NFL does not want to lose money under any circumstance. And so it will be the teams that pay the price, not the league. Right? Not the league on the whole. It'd be players losing game checks and teams losing out on the big paydays, because Jerry Jones doesn't want to pay lost revenue for your team, right? And that's what that comes down to. And to me, it's very clear. It seems to be less clear to the players why it is that that this issue exists and why it is that the policy is in place. A policy agreed to by the Players Association, which again, we've talked about a weak Players Association right now with Morris Smith. But you know what? At least unlike Cole Beasley, TJ Ward didn't create a rap album about it. So he saved us that. I never thought in my lifetime, Terry, I'd have to say Cole Beasley wrote a rap album about a vaccine.
He's good though. He's actually a good rapper,
okay.
and I agree with a lot of what Cole Beasley says. That's where I stand. But I'm also vaccinated, so what am I going to say?
Well, his statement made more sense than his initial stance.
Of course, yeah, because he was able to speak. Yeah.
And it wasn't off the cuff. It wasn't something he was writing on social media. So, I'll agree with you at that point. Terry, thanks for all the great work you've done today. Thank you, Stephanie Medeiros, for joining us. She's a wonderful guest. Eagle, thank you for all the work you've done. And thank you all for letting me be myself. Oh, subscribe, rate, review, do all the things. Love you. You've
Hot
been
Streak
listening to
Fantasy.
Hot Sauce Sports.